And welcome to our webinar about identity management, authorizations, compliance with our tool setQ. We have here Philip Latini, which is one of the main persons who has been developing and bringing this tool into the market, probably one of the most knowledgeable persons about authorizations management within SAP. Philip, you want to say hi?
Hi, welcome.
So let's start with our agenda for today. We'll be showing you shortly who we are, what we do. Then we'll start speaking about the combination of setQ and SAMQ to understand the benefits of managing authorizations and licenses all together. Then we want to focus on the cost and the simplicity side of our tool to show you how easy it is to implement such a system and how to optimize your approval processes within the company. So starting with the company, Focus is a German company. We founded the company in the 80s, started as an SAP system integrator, and we work together with all companies related to SAP licensing authorizations, SAP's user groups in the US and Germany, Spain, Mexico, and several other countries. And since 2015, we've had a focus when we purchased the company on the part of license management. And then in 2018, we started with setQ, which is a very interesting alternative to SAP's GRC product group. And we'll show you why this is the case, why this is a very interesting alternative from the economic point of view, as well as from the implementation time point of view. So let's start with it. Real identity management. Philip, do you want to take over?
Thank you, Francisco. So yeah, welcome everybody. If you think of authorization management and identity management, then of course it depends on what is your main motivation to pick up this topic, because there are several views and perspectives to manage identities, to manage authorizations, assignments, and of course you have a combination always with the compliance part of it. So if it comes to the motivation to set up a new authorization concept or even to move to S/4HANA, then we have great opportunities here to set up with setQ, supported by our different managers and modules. All are integrated in SAP, so we are an add-on, and there is no need for exporting any data out of your system. So everything is directly live into your system. And we are focused on several, let's say, main points here. So actually, at one point, we have the whole central user administration. So if it comes to managing the master data and managing all the assignments to the user, this is possible with our setQ Identity Manager. And to set up the whole authorization concept process, this is possible with our role manager. I will get into the details later in the presentation. And now it is very important for us to do this in a compliant way. So not only assigning roles and creating new authorizations, this should be compliant within the requirements of the customer, of the market, of the anyhow the requirements from your side. So if you're facing some issues regarding SOD conflicts, for example, we have the possibility to identify those compliance risks and so on in an automated way, and maybe before it comes to a change on a system. So basically, those are the three things: managing users, creating or managing authorization concepts, and do this in a compliant way. And yeah, of course, I will get into the details within the next half an hour.
Well, now the question is, why is authorization management and license management something that works together? This will depend very much on the way your contract with SAP is configured. What has been happening over the last years is that SAP has been changing the use rights in the way that many license types, user license types, they depend on the authorizations that you give a user, not so much what they really do. So you need to check your contracts and see if use rights are defined in the way that they say a user is a person who is allowed or permitted to do this and that, or rather the user is a person who performs functions which is more function oriented. So this depends very much on your contract, but essentially, depending on the authorizations that you give a user, he will be allowed to do certain things within SAP. The licenses don't have an effect on what he is allowed to do. The roles and authorizations do. So with this combination, you need to understand what is the optimal configuration of licenses for your users. You need to find out who are really using those rights that you assigned him and who is not doing anything with them. And thus you need to investigate alternative license types, everything that would fit into the profile of what the user is doing on a day-to-day basis. Same is for engines. And once you have all of that, you can prepare with the SAP License Audit Workbench the report that you will send over. But before you do that, you should make sure that you have optimized your licenses in a way that you prevent paying for things that your users aren't really doing in the system. So let us go over to the next one. Philip.
Okay, I will pick up here. So the thing around the authorization is quite complex in SAP. If you think of different use cases, for example, starting with a new SAP landscape, or furthermore creating a new authorization concept, or move to S/4HANA, you have different challenges facing in the daily business or project business. Our different manager will help you accelerate a project regarding authorization. So if it comes to the management with our role manager, we are able to manage all of your SAP landscape, your productive system, development system. The complete ABAP landscape can be managed with one single instance. So with the role manager gives you the opportunity to do all kinds of mass modification, documentation, and so on. So this is the, let's say, main instance. So, and we are always talking about how to create new authorization and to even have more complex authorization concept and creating more roles. But some of the customers, they are just asking us the different question because they are facing the issue that is also combined with the license topic, because some of the users, they have too much authorizations. They have too many roles in the system, and even the customer after 10 years are not able to face down what is actually really in use. So which user is using which transaction. So this is one special task for our reduction manager. So we can easily find out by the combination of trace information out of SAP, so which person is using which transaction and which object, could be valuable for us to identify which roles are not in use. So we could easily prevent having too many roles on the system, which also could be a risk for you, of course. But if it comes to license measuring and other things, it is anyhow interesting. So the reduction manager is one great opportunity here to reduce your role set and the risk by your authorization. And if it comes to extend the existing authorization concept, then the extension manager would be a good option, because now you use the whole transaction data, ST01, for example. So we are not only interested in the transactions, even more interesting for us is the objects and fields. With setQ, with the extension manager, you have this opportunity to identify what is really in use, to set up some kind of reverse business engineering, and this gives you, combined with our role reference manager, which is like the experience from the last years, and an acceleration for a project to start with standardized workplaces and role templates. We have over 1,000 role templates, meaning that single processes like purchasing and so on is in a template defined by us. And this could be used for each customer to customize it to his special, or let's say, organized specific process. And the combination with the extension manager to see what is really in use, which of my employees are using which transactions and objects, is a really good combination, and to accelerate an authorization concept and not to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, we just sum up some user management, let's say, rules, basic rules. And I don't want to get through that in detail, but let's just pick up one or two that, from my perspective, are really important. And as we say to each customer, to every project, it is not important to do, let's say, once a cleanup or creating an authorization concept in a few months. It is much more important to implement processes to stay clean, of course, and keep it clean. Get clean and keep it clean to avoid risk violations in your role and rule set. And therefore, you need a special user management using different kind of workflows, using different kind of approval steps. And this gives you the opportunity to stay clean in that case. And one example, in that case, is point 5, the control of power users. Of course, power users like consultants, external consultants, or, for example, you have this kind of power user use case that you need a special authorization, but just once a year. Could be a scenario that is still okay, but with us, with the emergency manager, for example, you have the option here to identify what is really happening with your power users. So we are logging all activities with those extended rights and authorizations and making some kind of audit to show the internal revision, for example, or the auditing company what has happened with my power users over the time, and to control, for example, those reports and logs I've been creating. So that is one option here to accept, yes, I have not everything in mind with my authorization concept. There are use cases which require extended rights, but then I have a defined standard process which is compliant in all kind of directions. And furthermore, if you think of point 7, the whole documentation, this is actually a little bit annoying point, because all of the customers are always say like, okay, yes, I need to documentate my changes, and of course I have my authorization concept in some Excel format and so on. But if you be honest to yourself, then you know probably everything what you write out of SAP, it is not up to date. Tomorrow it will be old data, and you are not able to verify is it still valid. Okay. So with setQ, you have the option here to be up to date with your documentation every time, because we do this in an automated way. So everything, every change on a role, on an assignment, gets automatically documented by us. So we know from the beginning of the user which roles has been assigned, which approvals has been made, changes on the master data, and so on. And we can compare those information. We can reactivate older versions, for example. So this is very, very helpful in the daily business, because the only thing you have to keep in mind is why you do a change, why you assign this role to the user. And maybe you have to write down a comment because it's a critical one. But then still after 1 or 1.5 years, it is just a few clicks to identify those changes. Okay, good. And now if you think of the main processes, and let's just back up at that point, because we are talking about, okay, functions and features of the product, but just keep in mind that it is just a tool. And once I heard a good sentence from a customer, still a fool with a tool is still a fool. So keep in mind that it is important, yes, but you have to think of your processes. And your processes is very important to identify what is really, why is that tool really helping me? Why is the compliance for me important? Why do I have currently a high effort by assigning roles to the users or doing mass modification and so on? So these are the processes where we are interested in to help you with that case. And of course, our tool setQ is a part of it, but the processes and the organizational structure at your landscape and from each customer, this is the main value where you want to help in each case. And if we get to our functions that the role manager, just in short, we have the possibility, as I just said, to manage all kind of transactions, roles, and those components in a central way. And we can do this by, let's say, avoiding any interruption of your daily business. So we don't disturb your key users in the daily operations and in daily business, because we can do this by, for example, the reference user. We can even do it without the reference user. We have some special functionalities within the extension and role manager to just keep your operations running and finding out what, let's say, roles and what authorization are really in use. And maybe we missed some transactions, but this could be a really lean implementation, because we don't avoid any disturbance. And the compliance part is a little bit more complex, because this depends always on the requirements of the customer, because we can easily implement an offline audit. So you can just check out once a month, how is it going with my violations on the authorization concepts and user assignments. And we are always auditing both roles and users. And but it is much more interesting if you think of a compliance instrument by implementing this in your daily, let's say, workflow. If it comes to a change on a user, someone is asking for, please give me this or that role, and then it could be interesting to do it in a preventive way, not reactive. You know, if you think of any auditing company finding out that you have already some violations in place, then it's too late. You need to prevent those risks or changing the roles to generate a new risk. You need to avoid that process. And therefore, the compliance manager helps you by an online audit to identify changes on a role, on a system, on assignments, to see, okay, if I change this, this could be in violation at the end with those, let's say, 10 users. And even if that is okay for me, because it's some kind of a small organization and I'm not able to do it in a different way, then it is okay. You can mitigate those risks and changes and even documentate everything for the auditing companies. And at the end, the design and manage authorization concept, this is quite one of the big, let's say, accelerator. We do deliver, of course, not only the compliance rule set. There are over 700 rules predefined by us, which can be provided to each customer. So also at that point, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the same thing on the role side. So we deliver over 1,000 functions, let's say role templates, and we deliver over 100 workplaces. Really detailed, predefined workplaces like the purchase manager and the account manager. And this is with a bunch of transactions included, objects and fields. So this is basically our knowledge and experience from the last projects. And even furthermore, this is also up to date with S/4HANA compatible. So you have the latest version implemented in place, so you can easily start with your migration. And furthermore, one last thing to the HANA, if you are interested, for example, finding out what would have the implementation of HANA, what would be the impact regarding my authorization? Then we could easily find out by an S/4HANA migration check to check your existing roles and check those roles for the HANA compatibility. So we can easily match what kind of transactions are obsolete, which can be deleted, which are still okay at S/4HANA, and could create a really comparison with those two versions here and provide it to you so you can have some kind of tasks to get through those roles who have the impact. And then, yeah, you could easily redesign your authorization concept. And you don't need any standard objects. So if it comes to the implementation of setQ and you have the identity and role manager in place, then you don't need any separate tools. You don't need SO01, you don't need PFCG, you don't need the central user administration if it comes to, so you have one single instance, and from there you manage your whole SAP landscape. Okay. And yeah, furthermore, I just talked a few sentences about the processes, and one process it is, yeah, let's say, belongs to the compliance part, is the recertification process. So repetitive decisions can be, let's say, documented and checked in a period of time, for example, each year or every 3 months. So it could be for you from interest finding out, is this user still active? Is that role assignment still necessary? So those cleanups could be a good way to stay clean and even provide some kind of automated processes. And once again, everything is integrated. So once you, for example, decide that user's not in your organization anymore and you don't have any HR implemented automated processes, then the user and the identity manager in setQ will be automatically inactive. So we will maybe lock this user or delete the user, whatever you want. So there could be some way an automated process, and this is the interesting part of it. You don't have to do it in a manual way. And the same thing on the central user administration, and there it comes to a special, let's say, special requirement, because I just told you that we are capable of attach all kind of target system within the SAP landscape. So typical, the ERP system, BW, portal system, HR, and so on. So now if you think of the roadmap of SAP, they are forcing mobile first, cloud first. So if it comes to the cloud systems, then you have, compared to the typical identity management systems, a bunch of products from SAP who are doing different things. Just to say some product names, typical is like the identity management for cloud from SAP, or GRC risk control, process control, compliance control, and so on. So these are big products with big features, and I don't want to compare those things because we are focusing on a really lean implementation, what really is in place, what really is in need, and very modular, in a very modular way. And therefore, to have an answer regarding the single cloud systems, we can easily connect by our cloud connector those third-party appliances or third-party systems to attach them to our identity manager, and now identify there is, for example, a SuccessFactors or even Ariba or any other, for example, if ticket system or something like this, which could be connected by a web service, and then we could easily manage the users there, or for example, the assignments or changing master data, whatever you want. So this is very, very generic and very easy for you to manage it in your own way, and is just one of our connectors. We still have connectors, for example, for HR, BW. I will get to this at a later point. Francisco, you need to help me with that last point with the setQ license optimization, please.
Yeah, no problem. The thing is, when we use a license optimization system, one of the outcomes that we have there as the analysis of transactions and activity of users. Now, if you anyway are performing an analysis of activity of users just to provide the users the right license type, then again, you can use this analysis of activity to understand which roles are being used and which are not. And this is the idea. So basically, license management is an extension of authorization, role management, compliance management that you should make use of, and that brings all of the idea together. And this is also the reason why the strategy of the company has been doing and bringing those tools together. Now, I would like to remind you that you have the opportunity to put up questions related to what Philip is telling us, and use the question function in the webinar software to get us help about specific things. We'll talk about the approval process. The approval process means basically what happens when a new worker comes, when someone changes his department and he needs access to new things. How should you be managing this? So out to you, Philip.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, important thing. And if it comes to the approval process in a usual way, then you have different, let's say, steps where there's a chance of making it wrong. Let's say, for example, only the request as itself. This is always a complex thing because most of our customers, they do it in a very manual way to have some kind of maybe tickets, maybe email, maybe some formulas and documents which need to be filled in and sent to the key user and so on. So, but now at the request, if you look at those formulas, there is no chance of the end user to help him finding the right authorization, finding the right key user, who will make the approvals, is there a risk, is there a violation, and so on. So this is a little bit annoying for most of the customers, and it would take too much time to get to the right authorization. And 1, 2, or 3 days is always some fast reaction. Even if it comes to complex organization, then it will take much longer to approve it. And the approval as itself is, if you see maybe there is a person who's not capable of finding out, is there still a violation? Because maybe the end user just say, I need to work, please give me that role. So the key user maybe have some kind of process owner or role owner duties, but he is not able to identify if there is any risk with the other role or workplace. So maybe he does an approval, and so this is it. This is a very manual process. It will take much time, and it is not integrated in a system. So there we have high potential. So please move to the next slide. Then I could show you how we can do it in a different way. So with the optimization, we had talked about different options to manage users' roles and assignments in the ABAP system. But furthermore, we have the possibility to do it by a, let's say, web surface, an employee self-service app, which can be used for end users or key users to implement an workflow who is much more automated, who identifies the risks and could be one scenario to stay clean in future. So you define at first what kind of approvals you have in your organization, for example, the role manager or let's say the role owner, risk owner, and so on. And of course, what kind of changes creates an approval step. So changing an assignment, what kind of assignments, maybe you have critical roles, or there is a new employee accessing new target systems, for example. So what kind of approval steps are really needed? So that workflow administration is necessary at the beginning, but we guide you through there and set up a workflow that is capable of managing all kind of changes on the system. And in your daily business, in your routine, then you just have to approve those single steps. And this gives you the chance here to automate and maybe not create more annoying tickets for your help desk, your SAP team, which maybe receives a bunch of tickets in a month. I need this ticket, I need that role, I need this user, and so on. And to, let's say, avoid time, efforts here to manage the users. Okay.
So, Philip, before we get over to the use cases, tell me something. When I hear about all these things, I mean, managing access to SAP, making sure that people have only the rights that they need for their actual work, and coping with changes in the company of people moving from one department to the other, leaving the company, starting with the company. All of this seems very interesting, but what are we talking about? How complicated is this to automate these processes to make life easier for the SAP team? Is this a project of 2 years? Is this something where you need to invest lots of money? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, and good question. Thank you. So yeah, asking about the price or taking how much time to implement and to implement. So is it differ? You know, the requirements of the customers are always different, because we recommend those implementations as high as automated as possible. So if it comes to, for example, in an SAP HR processes and how to maybe redesign the onboarding processes for a joiner, mover, leaver, as you just described, this is a great opportunity, a great chance to implement. So, and for example, attaching an HR would be, let's say, 10 to 15 days to implement automated processes. But if it comes to those use cases like HR, then it is very easy and you don't need much time to administrate those processes, just to keep this still running, to have the RSC connection and so on. So it depends on the main situation of the customer. So starting with a implementation of our identity and role manager could be done within just, let's say, 20 to 30 days, implementing all the roles, users, authorization, and you just have directly after the implementation and uploading your users the chance to set up the workflows, for example, enable the compliance part, and this could be done within just a few months. So this is one scenario. The other scenario could be more complex if it comes to a whole redesign, reorganization, and restructure everything to set up a new authorization concept. Of course, this is much more complex, and it depends on how many modules, how many users, how many processes we need to take care of.
Thank you very much. So let's get to the next step.
Okay, so we just pick up several use cases. For example, the end user, if he needs a new role, then I just already talked about our web manager. This is or could be one instance to request new roles. And the special thing is here that just in that moment when he requests a new role, so there's no change on the system. We don't send any requests. There is no change on the user, on the data, and so on. We just have the wish to do so. Just in that moment, we can already implement some audit functionalities and give some kind of, let's say, information or hint to see if you're asking for that role, then this user is able to do this and that, some kind of violations, some violations for your customer-specific rule set. And then the key user maybe is thinking or overthinking the request, and maybe he's using another role, a smaller role, and just to make sure we have no compliance issues right there. And the assignment process starts after I submit my request in the web manager, and maybe there is a risk and there is a violation, but then of course you have the chance here to make a comment, to write down your mitigation and say, yes, I have the violation here, but it is okay, I can't avoid it in that case. And yeah, you move forward with the approval steps. And this is one automated process starting from the beginning in the web manager, but it is automated in a way that at the end you have your requests, you have your workflow, you have your assignments, your audit in place, and all of these functionalities take care of that you don't have any bad changes. And the second use case we just picked up out of our scope, let's say, is the HR process. It is not only HR what we are talking about, because many customers, they do say our master data and information around the user is not managed only in HR. We also have one customer, for example, who says my master data is maintained in the Active Directory. So if it comes to the implementation of CVIS or the setQ, sorry, then you have the chance here to be in one single instance to manage all of the users, but of course we could also manage by another system. And this is possible to, for example, create an automated process. If it comes to a new employee, joiner, mover, leaver process, then we could attach those information to our identity manager and set up automated process that the user will automatically receive their target system, their roles, their master data, password, email, and so on, everything what he needs to start with his work, and everything is documented and controlled by our workflow. Yeah, and the documentation, yeah. I already got this point at the beginning, but yeah, it is annoying, I know, and but it is also important. And of course, we say we have our live system, we have setQ, we have everything in place in a centralized organization to know all about the users, the assignments, and so on. But much more important is somehow the possibility to, let's say, generate some kind of document, some kind of prosa text, some kind of extract out of the system to make some signatures at the end. And therefore, we created the concept manager, which gives the chance to create a Word template, which is customizable. There is some macro, SAP macro within, and some placeholders, which generate the up-to-date information from the one day you just generate those documents with all necessary information you need about, for example, naming convention, all of your role sets, critical violations. And all these things are generated automatically in a document and can be, of course, customized by your needs. So the specific document is adjustable, customizable, and but always up to date just in that moment when you push the button. Very easy implementation, 1, 2, maximal 2 days, and is really interested for all or almost all of our customers.
Now, Philip, we're coming to an end, and I would like to ask you some questions regarding all of this. First of all, I mean, our clients are SAP users. SAP has a very interesting bunch of products in their price list. This is what is called governance, risk, and compliance. What do you say? Why should a client go away from SAP and decide to implement a different product here? What is the argument? What is the real reason why people are buying these tools?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the strength and the real capability of our toolset of setQ is the flexibility. So if you think of a big GRC installation and you think of all the products you will need from SAP to ensure an end-to-end security from beginning of an assignment at the end to do the remediation and recertification, then you need, I don't know, 1 to 2 years implementing a GRC solution. And even if it comes to the whole landscape, you of course need a separate landscape even for this. So if you look at setQ, it is everything integrated in the SAP landscape. No need for extracting information out of SAP. It is implemented in your, for example, solution manager if you want to, with some free resources running. And yeah, this is one big issue, to be much more flexible and fast by the implementation. It only takes 1 or 2 days to implement the setQ product as itself, and then start with the project. And the second thing is that you can easily, let's say, attach those use cases we just talked about step by step. So if you are interested just finding out and implementing some compliance issues, then you just pick up the compliance manager. That's okay. Some of our customers start with such managers, but at the end, maybe you want to ensure managing all users and assignment. Then you pick up the identity manager. Then in the next step, you're maybe able to create those or set up the web process. Then you pick up the web manager and so on. And this is, I want to just highlight this. It is very dynamic. It is very flexible. You just pick up those use cases and needs and requirements you are looking for and do it in a very fast way.
Okay, one last question. It was some months ago, I was visiting a client with about 1,000 users, and he told me that he have 4,500 roles in his system. Now, what do you normally find in companies in terms of numbers? What is usual for a 1,000 user company to have in terms of roles? How many roles should they be managing?
Also different question, difficult question. Yeah, I think it depends on the organizational structure of the company. So 5,000 seems to be a high amount of users if you compare it to those 1,000 users. But if you think of maybe the organizational structure, because the company has many plants, many workplaces, many shops, or even, I don't know, maybe it is a fashion company or something like this, then 5,000 users, roles by 1,000 users is nothing. So that is quite a good amount. But always we are trying to keep the balance between the, let's say, modularity, so to be flexible, setting up the right authorization, but to keep it as small as possible. So I think we are trying to get always the middle of the magic split between those two
Very good.
things.
Yeah, thank you very much, Philip. I think this is all we have for now. We'll be sending out our presentation to all participants, and feel free to contact us based on these emails. If you have additional questions, if you want to know something about how to set up such a compliant environment in your company, make sure that you reduce the effort you have to do with everything every time the auditors come into your company, and increase the security of your systems. We'll be glad to help you there and answer your questions. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. We wish you a successful day and stay healthy. Take care. Bye so far.
Bye-bye.